All right, Erin Molan, we've been covering her for a very long time on this channel. She gave a brilliant monologue regarding the Israeli hostages. Check it out.
So I want to ask you to do something with me. It's easy, I promise. This first bit is anyways. Close your eyes if you need to, whatever works for you. I want you to remember, if you're a parent, the first time your baby took his or her first steps. It might make you smile. It's generally a milestone we celebrate. But I bet there was also that moment of sadness, just a tinge maybe. An awareness that this special moment also signals the fact that your baby's growing up, entering a phase of life that you can't fully control or completely protect them from. They might fall over, they might graze their knee, but you know deep down it's, well, all part of life, that it doesn't matter how hard you try or how much you want to. You cannot shield them from everything. You can only prepare them as best you can for every big and little challenge that will come their way. Remember the first time you left them now with someone else. It might have been a babysitter or a preschool, a daycare. That moment you walked away, maybe sat back in your car and probably sobbed. I did. Maybe it was a mixture of relief and fear, a bit of anxiety. Although you may have done every bit of due diligence available to you because after all you were leaving your most precious possession with someone else. But just the possibility, the sheer thought of your child being a little scared or uneasy or nervous was enough to cripple you at times, right? Now fast forward or rewind back, remember or imagine their last day of school. It's the same story, right? A mix of pride and joy, but also that sense of loss. Your baby no longer needs you like they used to. They're about to enter the real world, and you know firsthand how brutal a place that can be. And when I say brutal, I mean, for the vast majority of us, the privileged kind of brutal. Heartbreak, job loss, regular day-to-day tough times. But you also know, and this is reassuring, that if they fail, if they fall, if they screw it up royally, I've been there, then you will be there. A place for them to always come home to, where they might get a stern word or a talking to, they might not, but they will know without any doubt that in your arms they are safe. They can cry, they can yell, they can fall apart entirely, secure in the knowledge that you will be there for them and you will protect them as best you can until your dying day from anything that might hurt them. Now this is when it gets a little harder to play along. I want you as a parent to imagine a different kind of pain and not taking away from the very real heartache of our babies growing up and not needing us. That's very legitimate, but I want to take you somewhere else now, somewhere far darker, far more sinister, but also somewhere very real. Your little girl, your baby boy, your beautiful teenager, your handsome young man. Imagine them now, their faces, the overwhelming love you feel. And then imagine it was them. Imagine the pain of them falling over, having their heart broken or losing a job, replaced by something far, far, far worse. Imagine your child ripped from their bed, dragged by their hair, beaten mercilessly, raped. Imagine October 7 in your country, your town, your suburb, to your kids. Imagine your precious child with blood-stained pants, broken bones, and that expression of pure horror as they were thrown into the back of a pickup truck by gun-toting terrorists screaming and cheering with joy. Imagine, honestly, just imagine. Imagine it was your child. Then, fast forward over 460 days later and imagine they were still there. Maybe alive, maybe dead. You don't actually know. And imagine that instead of the entire civilized world wrapping its collective arms around you while simultaneously demanding their release, they instead ignored your horror. Maybe worse, they tried to justify it. And unfathomable a year and a half ago, some of them even publicly support it. Imagine if, as you endure the unendurable, every second of every single day and night, imagining their fear, their pain, their absolute terror, the human rights activists and feminists you once admired call the call of your never-ending nightmare resistance. Some even take to the streets waving the flags of the evil monsters who carried it out. Imagine, just imagine, the willingness you'd have to give your own life to save your child's, but even that is not an option. You are completely helpless. You fight and you beg and you scream, but it makes no difference. It's almost impossible to imagine for the vast majority of us, thank God. But for those for whom this is a reality, who live this day in and day out, it is a never-ending nightmare. And how lonely they must feel, how rejected, how isolated, how broken. Not just by the unthinkable atrocities committed on that day and still ongoing, but by the reaction of a world they once felt belonged to, they were a part of. I get it. It's easier to ignore and stick your head in the sand, to avoid a reality that feels so far away and that is so painful. And that ignorance would be okay. It would be okay. Not ideal, but okay if they were all home and safe, but they are not. And it is not over. No one is asking you to go into Gaza and bring them home. No one is asking you to march in the streets, though that'd be nice. No one is asking you to prioritise their lives over those of other children. They are just asking you to care about theirs just as much, to acknowledge them, to see them. So many around the world are so vocally horrified by the suffering of children in Gaza, and rightly so. It's horrific. But why is it so hard to also lament the horror of all those innocents taken on October 7? To share their pictures and their suffering and their pain. It's been hundreds of days that parents, just like you, just like me, human beings, are still without their babies, their big and their small babies. Why is it so hard? Why do some images of some children suffering render you completely inconsolable, whilst others don't seem to muster a tear? No one ever had to choose, ever, by the way, and this is important. It wasn't one set of children that deserved your empathy or the other. Humanity could have rallied immediately around the victims of October 7 before an IDF boot set foot on the ground in Gaza, demanded the hostages' release, shown an unwavering commitment to their homecoming and the demise of the murderous terrorists who took them. A collective and unified, we will not tolerate this evil, not on our watch. But instead, here we are now, hundreds of days later, more lives lost than ever needed to be, under the guise of empathy, humanity. But it has been nothing of the sort. It's too late to save the tens of thousands who have already died, both in Israel and in Gaza. The millions still suffering as a result. But it is not too late to wake up, to find a moral compass and to correct course. There are still babies we can get home to Israel and babies we can save in Gaza. But it requires humanity to find itself again. Imagine your child's perfect face. And then imagine that same face out of your reach in the hands of evil. Imagine. Because whilst this horror might seem far, far away, especially if you live in Australia or the UK, America, Europe, it's not. Look around. None of us are untouchable. This threat is no longer confined to the Middle East. It never was. It's spreading. So I beg you, do right now what you would beg every other human being to do if it was your child. Speak, share, remember. Every voice matters. In fact, it's the only thing that matters right now. Nothing else has worked. Use every tool you have to help get them home. In turn, you will help end the suffering in Gaza. You will help bring peace to the Middle East. And you will help ensure that the next time something like this happens, and we pray it doesn't, but if it does, that the example you set now will be followed by others. If and again, God forbid, the next time it's your child.
Strong words from Erin Molan. We'll continue to cover her incredible monologues on a, I think, at least twice a week basis. We don't add a lot to those monologues because nothing needs to be added. She pretty much lays it all out there. For more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. That's buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Thank you. Have a good one.